3 years ago, I set out to construct the most powerful nootropic stack for focus, motivation, and sheer cognitive horsepower. I logged hundreds of hours, sampled endless amounts of cognitive performance chemicals, and ran beta tests with soldiers from the United States Army. And after massive experimentation and ruthless trial and error, my work had finally paid off. I found what I was looking for.
Primary aim with the Cortex stack was to make a stack that is that stands out compared to the other commercial nootropic stacks. I mean, I think a lot of them out there are great, but I wanted to, first of all, I was using the ingredients in the stack, most of them, to achieve great brain performance and the functioning of a business. For probably about 2 years until I decided, hey, I'm going to turn this into a commercial stack. And, after having come across two of the powerful components in it, uridine monophosphate and CDP-choline, and particularly how they work together, this is something that wasn't in any other stacks, at least notable commercial nootropic stacks, and so it was pretty significant. But the biggest complaint out there among the nootropic community with pre-made stacks, first of all, it's price, of course, but that's something that if the person or the company puts in the work and they develop a great product, labeling and bottling and all these sorts of things, and then expenses for a company, it sort of has to cost what it is. Ours, Cortex is $34.99. We're going to get it down to 20-something, probably with the next iteration of the product. But I think one of the other, that's like a sort of minor complaint. The chief, because if something is effective, you'll buy it. People will buy it. People spend $150 on coffee a month, depending on where they go. But the chief complaint, I think, is that stacks aren't that effective, right? And to solve that problem, you have to think about not just stimulating a person, but you actually have to think about how do you improve, logically improve in a linear fashion with demonstrated science functions of the brain. And uridine monophosphate and CDP-choline do so in improving neurite outgrowth, contributing to phospholipid synthesis, and a whole bunch of other impressive, logical, linear things that improve brain function. So that was really the only way for us. So we created a stack that was being used by everyone from Wall Street executives to business people, corporate people, the U.S. military, soldiers in the United States Army, were part of the beta testing group, and now soldiers, United States Army, United States military in general, got an order recently for somebody in the Coast Guard, use the product because they need to be focused on point all day. So secure a bottle of the Cortex stack at livecortex.com, and what's being called the only pre-made nootropic stack that works. Let's talk about Noopept and nerve growth factor. Guys that watch my stuff, or people that watch my stuff, know that I'm fascinated with this. I think improving brain performance over the long term is incredible. The woman who discovered it won a Peace Prize for nerve growth factor, used it for 30 years, had incredible cognitive functioning. And so, what you're effectively doing by providing more nerve growth factor in the brain is you're setting the stage for neurodegeneration to be slowed considerably, and for neurotrophic factors, like these factors in the brain that allow neurons to continue to grow, a process called neurogenesis, and allows the brain to repair itself. And in the case of getting something like dementia or Alzheimer's, would stave off some of those neurodegenerative diseases. So I've been pumped about the whole thing. Nerve growth factor is a particular target of mine. We're probably going to create a new stack in addition to Cortex. And by the way, we're going to create a calm stack, like a good calm anxiety stack, anti-anxiety stack soon. Just got to get to it. But we're going to build a stack that's targeting nerve growth factor. That's one of my goals. I think it's critically important to do so. Not very stimulatory, none of that stuff. Just targeting nerve growth factor so that you just can know functional benefits. You realize functional benefits from it all. But I'm obsessed with it. And so Noopept, the smart drug, which is legal to have in the United States, legal to purchase, it is said to improve the quantity of nerve growth factor in the brain. There is a study on this. I'm going to read you a bit of the abstract that demonstrates this. But I think we should keep in mind that one of the scientists in the study is a woman named Rita. It's a Russian woman who created it, who co-created the product, the compound Noopept. So of course she's going to be positive about it and say one thing or another, but they're demonstrating this via scientific studies also. Just wanted to have you keep that in mind. So basically, here's the gist of the study. We studied the effect of the original dipeptide preparation Noopept with nootropic and neuroprotective properties on the expression of mRNA for neurotrophic factors. So essentially an indication that there was neurotrophic factors, specifically BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and then NGF, which is nerve growth factor. As an aside, you could achieve brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which will allow the brain to repair itself and do a cool bunch of cool things by some cardio, some pretty intense cardio, no question about it. Taking into account the fact that pharmacological activity of Noopept is realized after both acute and chronic treatment. So they're saying, you know, you can basically, we've got measurable changes in the brain as a result of taking Noopept before, right from an acute treatment, and then also with chronic use of it. We studied the effect of a single and long-term treatment, 28 days with this drug. Expression of the studied neurotrophic factors in the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain, was below the control after a single administration of Noopept, while chronic administration of Noopept caused a slight increase in BDNF expression. This is in the cerebral cortex, not necessarily like hippocampus or other areas, but in the hippocampus was a very functional part of the brain involved in memory consolidation and memory recall. Expression of mRNA for both neurotrophins, that's BDNF and nerve growth factor, increased after acute administration. So while in the cerebral cortex you really don't have a difference in nerve growth factor and or BDNF from an acute administration of Noopept, you do in the hippocampus, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's cool as hell. These changes probably played a role. Okay. Oh yeah, chronic treatment with Noopept was not followed. Here's another interesting part about Noopept, by the development of tolerance. They're basically saying that in this regard, constant chronic use of Noopept, which I think you should cycle, you should never really do that, doesn't create a tolerance. That's very interesting. That's a very interesting thing. And the campus determines cognitive function. These changes these changes probably play a role in neuronal restoration. Okay, we showed that the nootropic drug increases expression of neurotrophic factors in the hippocampus. Our results are consistent with the hypothesis that neurotrophin synthesis in the hippocampus determines cognitive function, particularly in consolidation and delayed memory retrieval. And this is the pretty critical part as it relates to nerve growth factor and why we think this is important. Because we want to stave off degeneration and we want to perform well now, but the former seems to be more important for a lot of people. Published data show that neurotrophic factor deficiency, so deficiency of BDNF and NGF in the hippocampus, is observed not only in Alzheimer's disease, but also at the stage of mild cognitive impairment, so a pre-disease state, a pre-neurodegenerative disease state. In light of this, our findings suggest that Noopept holds much promise to prevent the development of Alzheimer's disease in patients with mild cognitive impairment. Moreover, therapeutic effectiveness of Noopept should be evaluated at the initial stage of Alzheimer's. So again, I think it's important to keep in mind, one of the people that was behind the studies, the co-creator of Noopept, okay? So she is, I think, regardless, she's going to be biased about the compound. But I'm not sure about much of the methods here, so we can't really talk about the design of the study, but it seems clear enough that they are seeing increases in BDNF and NGF in the hippocampus on acute administration, and in the cerebral cortex and of course the hippocampus with chronic administration. And what they are hypothesizing about, and they're essentially saying that their findings are aligned with their contention that Noopept, because of its effect on nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the cerebral cortex and in the hippocampus, is a good compound, right? Is a plausible compound to prevent some of the cognitive impairment that might go on. Noopept, for me, 13 milligrams is like a great dose for me on Noopept. I feel it. The thing for me, it's like I can't notice, well, do I have nerve growth factor growing in my brain? It's like, is there more BDNF? But I certainly can retain a whole lot more information. It seems to make my brain a lot more clear. It almost feels like I have aged less, or I've taken some aging off of my brain for the time that it affects it. And who knows, perhaps, I haven't really chronically taken it, but perhaps for a couple days thereafter I might have some positive effects on it. We did a video which talked about nasal Noopept spray by a company called Limitless Life Nootropics. And that stuff is very, very powerful. So if you want to check it out on our website or check it on our YouTube channel. And that is basically the gist of Noopept and nerve growth factor. Thanks for watching.